invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gracious Heavenly Father, Creator of the universe, author of truth, Father, we come to you today and ask that you be present in this room and as we are making decisions on behalf of the taxpayers in this county and representing the residents who reside here. Father, we ask too that you be with those who are suffering devastation from tornadoes and storms. We ask particularly you be with the people of Andover. Father, we are so thankful for the moisture you brought to us. We ask that you continue to bring moisture to this dry earth. And Father, we ask that you bless all the people in this room and the families represented, those who are watching online as well. And Father, we lift all of our prayers to you through your Son, Jesus. Amen. Amen. Good morning, and under Chair's comments, two things that I will ask be added to the agenda today. One will be at the beginning of the business items is information about the signage for the Russ Jennings signs that was approved at the last meeting. And Dave Jones will lead that discussion, but that'll be just before the library board appointment. And then at the end of the meeting, after the commissioner reports, I'm asking that we have a second executive, or an executive session. It'll be limited probably to around 15 minutes. It'll be a brief one, but it'll be under the guidance of attorney-client privilege, or whatever the wording of that statute is. And we'll add that after the rest of our meeting because we do not anticipate any action from that executive session. The other thing I would make in Chair's comments is thank you to Larry for leading the board meeting the last time. Family does take precedence in my world, and I had family obligations, and so I appreciate Larry stepping in, and it looked like from the minutes that you even adjourned. So that's great. Yeah, but I do appreciate that. Well, that's all the comments that I have, and so if you're okay with those two agenda items, we're going to move on. Anybody opposed to adding those two agenda items? If not, let's move on to consent agenda, and we have three items on the consent agenda, and what is the board's desire?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
There's a motion to approve items on the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And there is a second, moved by Larry, seconded by Dave. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, we have public comment, and I believe we have several people here who might make public comment, but this is for any comment. This time is for any comments related to a subject that is not on our published agenda, because if it's something with regard to our published agenda, that discussion will come at the appropriate time. And we don't get real strict here at the county with regard to public comment, other than a couple of things. One is we ask for your respect from a time perspective, and we allow approximately 5 minutes per speaker. We're not so rigid that if it goes to 6 minutes or something that that we're going to shut you off in mid-sentence. But we ask that the comments be kept to around a 5-minute time frame. And secondly, we ask that the comments be respectful. We ask that they not be personal attacks. We ask that they be related to the subject that you have and be done in a respectful manner. So with those two comments of guidance, We are now open for public comment. Excuse me, let's do this so I don't forget to do it later. In public comment, one specific item that we have today is a proclamation about Mental Health Month, which is May, is Mental Health Month. And I believe we have someone here that wants to speak to that before I read the proclamation and for the record. And if you would come to the podium as you're doing and state name and who you represent for the record,
Good
please.
morning, Commissioners. My name is Kim Fisher, and I'm the Behavioral Health Liaison for USD 457. Thank you for your time this morning and your attention to Mental Health Awareness Month. I just wanted to share a couple pieces of information with you on mental health awareness. In the United States, approximately 50 million people suffer from a mental health condition yearly. Of that, 1 in 6, or about 17%, are youth ages 6 to 17. We all know that the pandemic has had a significant impact on many people's mental health, and many of our students who have had a COVID-19 diagnosis then report, about 1 in 5 of them, that they experience a first-time mental health condition as well. We know that access to care and decreasing stigma is very important in our students and all of our lives in terms of getting help for a mental health condition and successfully recovering from that mental health condition. And unfortunately, over half of our U.S. counties do not have access to a practicing psychiatrist. I believe Finney County is one of those. I wanted to share one final thing with you, and that is that we will have a new resource nationwide beginning July 16th, which is the 988 hotline number, and that will link directly 365 days a year to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time to make this proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month.
Thank you for those comments, and we appreciate the work you do and the attention to mental health. And before I read this, and I was fortunate enough to meet her at one time in Hayes, but the mental health thing was emphasized over the weekend with the death of Naomi Judd, and the cause of death released by the family was due to mental health issues. And so it is something, whether it's someone in our family or someone we might know or have met before, it is something that comes home to us. And then lastly, before I read the proclamation, we contract with Compass Behavioral Health here in Finney County, and that's part of where we get the services to help the residents of this county with regard to mental health issues, in addition to other outlets as well. The proclamation goes as this, and it's up on the screen, I believe. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas all Americans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions, and whereas there is a strong body of research that supports specific tools that all Americans can use to better handle challenges and protect their health and well-being, and whereas mental health conditions are real and prevalent in our nation, and whereas with early and effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives, and whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen shares the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention efforts. Therefore, I, Lonnie Pishney, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Mental Health Month in Finney County. As Finney County Commission Chair, I also call upon the citizens and government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses and schools in Finney County, to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health. The steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental health conditions. Signed and sealed this second day of May, 2022. Okay, hand that to Dory for the record, please. Okay, back to the remainder of public comment time. And I understand we have a person or two in the audience that may want to speak. Dory, do you want to?
Yes, we have a Miss Escalada,
Okay,
Mr. Munyon,
okay,
and Dr. Hannigan.
okay. And if you would come in that order as she read the names, that would be great. Doesn't have to be, but that'd be great.
Oh, thank you. Good morning. My name is Christine Escalada. I reside at 210 Grandview Drive with my granddaughter and her 2-month-old son. I've been at the residence for 25 years. I have two very short, different issues to present to you today. As you are aware, some residents have been connected to the sewage system at Southwind. Others, myself included, have septic tanks. If you ask anyone that lived in that area, they will tell you that septic tanks are a mess to maintain. They come with a lot of problems. Lately, few months, I know firsthand all the headaches that come with that. I have experienced it with mine on a monthly basis. To have it cleaned is very expensive. It's $400. It has been cleaned twice and it needs to be done again. I don't have that kind of money. I'm on a fixed income. It's either they told me either clean it or conserve water usage. How is that possible for two people and a baby? Mr. Thayer, south of me, was connected to Southwind system. So I'm asking for your cooperation and approval to be connected to the same sewer system. It would be a blessing and it would give me peace of mind. My other concern is an issue that you need to be aware of. In my front yard, there is a large locust tree. This tree, twice yearly, produces large pods, which look like this. On a yearly basis, the ground is covered with thousands of pods. They create a terrible mess on my yard and the easement by the road. It takes quite a while to clean up the mess. I have filled 16 large black trash bags. I spoke to Southwind maintenance people. I was told they were not responsible. By the way, this is new help. The easement, I was told that the easement belongs to the county. So I called Ray and Mr. Lopez last fall. I was assured that the problem would be discussed with the manager. As of today, I have not heard from anyone. I can no longer deal with it. I'm 85 years old and I hire help to do my mowing. Since the land belongs to the county, it should be maintained by the county or paid to do the labor. On the meeting with the homeowners association, it was passed down to the homeowners. And I'm thinking, oh, people, get real. I just said I'm 85 years old and I paid to get my yard done. It's not possible for me to take care of county land. I have sprayed it for weeds and done other things to it for all the time I've been there, and I can no longer do that. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and your concerns will be taken seriously, and we will discuss those in the future. We don't make those discussions during public comment, but thank you for raising those concerns to us.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I just have a comment to make. Josie Gunter. We were told that we're too far to be connected to the sewer, city sewer. But how can we be too far away from it? Because I live about 3 houses from Sean Thayer that used to live there. So, and those lots are not large,
Okay,
so I can't see the reason behind that.
yeah. Well, we'll look into that for sure. I promise you on that. So.
Thank
our
you.
Public Works and our administrator, and we'll look into that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. And then please state your name, because we have people watching online as well, so. So you're on camera.
Yes, I'm Francis Munyon, and I live at 606 North VFW Road. And I would like to have the commissioners take in consideration of putting some flashing yellow lights up at Railroad Avenue and VFW Road. I've done about all I can do to keep the people from going through my fence, but they keep running through that intersection. And it's one of those things, I think if we had some yellow flashing lights up there that would probably maybe 200 feet or 200 yards into the VFW or Railroad Avenue, it might deter some of the people from going through there. And I'm just really concerned about somebody getting hurt really bad or killed by running through that intersection. Because I've got a brick and steel fence up, and the last person hit I got bales in there to cushion the blow, but they went through that. And then before that, I have one person that ran right through my shop and did about $60,000 worth of damage and destroyed two of my vehicles, and I'm surprised that that person wasn't hurt, but she fled the scene, and we don't know particularly who was driving, but it's in the insurance situation right now. But I just am concerned about somebody getting killed or really hurt bad. And I think if we had some yellow flashing lights up on Railroad Avenue, it would maybe deter some of this. And that's what I'm requesting.
Yeah.
If you can consider that, I'd really appreciate it.
No question, we will consider what your concern is, and we will work with our administrator, Public Works, and our sheriff office, and see what we might be able to do to address that. So
Okay, well, that's the only thing I have for you.
would you come over and tell our clerk your contact information so that we can get back to you sometime? So if you would just step over here and give her your contact information, that'd be great. Okay, I think Dr. Hannigan was listed as the next one, and as Tim's coming to the stand, please understand that even if you didn't get signed in this morning, we will entertain any other public comments not related to our agenda items. Dr. Hannigan?
Good morning, Commissioners. It's again a privilege to be standing here to express my thoughts. Unfortunately, since I last spoke about my development on the corner of 5083, the county has not made any real progress in dissolving the Northwest Industrial District, which would allow the county to assume ownership of a problematic lift station that's critical to my project. Since I last spoke, I have spent $14,121.29 on holding costs, over $14,000 on interest payments that I won't ever be able to recover. It feels like I rolled the window down to my car and threw it out on the street. I find myself today in a much less respectful mood, and I apologize in advance for that. At a stakeholder meeting 20 days ago, Commissioner Finney questioned the date that the problematic septic lift station was brought to the attention of the county. In order to bring precision to this discussion today, I requested copies of all emails related to the lift station from my engineer and the emails written on my behalf by the Economic Development team. As you know, the Economic Development documents are public records. By my count, I found nearly 30 emails. I have summarized them and provided you with copies of the originals in order for you to determine if my summation is any way misrepresenting their content. Within the short time I'm allowed this morning, let me hit just a few of my personal highlights. April 5th, 2021, the county administrator and selected commissioners were notified of my project, the intended application for tax increment financing, and a need to, quote, work with the project on wastewater, unquote. That was 13 months ago. January 21st, 2022, a meeting was convened by Mr. Reese. I was not present. I have heard from several present that Curtis Logsdon, the Public Works Director, openly implied that his source in KDOT was skeptical that KDOT would grant approval for a second entry to my development, so what was the point of worrying about the lift station? Gentlemen, I've hired one of the best engineering firms in the state. They have their own traffic division. They've been in contact with KDOT before they were even in contact with the county. Do you think that your own economic development team would let me get this far without being assured that if we complied with KDOT, that we would be granted access? But more insidiously, what does it do to the marketing value of my project when a county employee is openly spreading disinformation about the viability of my project? February 4th, 2022, a stakeholder meeting was held. I was not present. The same day, Mr. Reese emailed all present in that meeting and stressed the importance of sharing information and indicated that Trent Maxwell had been directed to, quote, develop a process flow chart to educate all parties in the process, unquote. I have not seen the flow chart, and I'm not sure if it even exists. February 4th, 2022, following that meeting, Lana Duvall reassured everyone at the meeting that the economic development team could shepherd my project. Lana also felt the need to reintroduce me, my engineering team, and my legal team. That's right, commissioners, 10 months after the county was introduced to my project, the Economic Development Office felt the need to remind the county what my name is and who is on my team. We are 13 months subsequent to my introduction of a development that has the potential to add $240 million to the county tax rolls. And in those 13 months, I have not had a single reach out from or conversation with your county administrator. February 15th, 2022, my engineers asked for the county's determination of the list status again. The engineers had been provided information from Larry Brungart related to the size and depth of the station, but the condition of the wet well was a concern. My engineers suggested a meeting. February 15th, the same day, Mr. Reese emailed my attorneys and my engineers to state that the lift station wasn't owned by the county and a final determination of the status of the station would be initiated by engineers once the Northwest Industrial District was dissolved.
Tim, about 1 minute, please.
That's right. 9 months after I first asked a question about the lift station, the response from your county administrator was, it's not our station, and I'm not going to discuss what's wrong with it until after it's our station. Well, in order to comply with the time, let me just summate the other points I'd like to make. I reached out to Commissioner Kreitzer to try to intervene and get some kind of progress. I pressed him, why can't you intervene personally? He said, our governance model prohibits me from having any conversations with anyone besides Commissioner Finney. My own representative on the commission board is not able to intervene on my behalf without going through the county chair. There are emails in here that indicate quite clearly that not only did Mr. Finney understand when the project came aboard, he understood that the lift station was problematic. He convened a meeting of stakeholders. I was there at that one. He promised me a timeline. I've not received a timeline. I requested a timeline for when I would get my timeline, and I still haven't gotten that. Here's the numbers so far. 13 months since I introduced my project, 30 plus emails, 3 stakeholder meetings, 2 conference calls, 7 hours of drive time for my engineer, $300 per day in holding costs, 7 very serious land sale prospects interested in this development, hundreds of hours spent by my team. One of my prospects expressed his frustration to me last week. Quote, total BS what they are doing. It infuriates me as well because what these people don't realize or don't care about is that it's not just affecting you. There are a lot of people being affected. I remind you again, gentlemen, I could invest my money anywhere. I chose to invest it locally. But I won't be recommending that anyone repeat my efforts until the county address some systemic problems, some personnel problems, and I believe some governance problems. I hope you'll seriously give that some consideration. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate your comments. We really do. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, and no one stepped forward, we're going to move into our business items. And Dave, I'm going to turn to you. I understand that the last meeting when I was absent that there was a motion to, and it was approved to rename the Juvenile Detention Center, and that you have some information about the signage that you want the commissioners to consider.
I do. If you'll take one, and you need to give one to the press. Linda, can you share one with Robert? Because he has part of that, and then one
He
to,
wants one to go to Megan.
before we start through this, you're correct, Mr. Chairman. Last meeting, we voted to name the complex in honor of J. Russell Jennings. And at that point, I asked our county administrator to seek signing. Now I'm going to tell you what happened and why I got ahead of what we asked the county administrator to do. I happened to be having a meal in a restaurant, and in came an acquaintance of mine and his wife, one Kenny and Kit Green, and so they joined me for my meal. And as we were sitting and discussing things, I had advised Kenny that I admired signs that he put up, his Mid-America Millwright folks put up around the feedlots, that sort of thing that they built. And I asked where he got those signs, and he said, well, they built the frames in his shop. They used A1 sign in Garden City for most of the signing, and they used what used to be CNC powder coatings, now buckshot powder coatings 4 miles north of town to powder coat, and that was his best recommendation. So with that, I went to A1 sign and presented a concept, if you will. Darren drew up sign as you see at 18, rather than being all on one line, he said that would be a tough to read sign and would not look correct. Do it in 2 lines, and so he drew up the 18 by 6 foot sign panel, and you'll find prices there for those in various kinds of letters. And I have these colors available for letters, if anybody doesn't like the blue that's on. The blue was selected for your consideration today because of the trim on your buildings, trying to match that blue trim. So I then took the measurements, went to Mid-America Millwright, and Les or Draftsman drew up 4x4 square tubing signs. You can see that in your packet, and with prices. Now going back to the site for a minute, there's, after looking at it, and I had Robert along with me to kind of, I hope to agree, there are 2 natural places for signs. At the southwest corner of the property, there's a retention pond. And the backside of that has a curb that is at a 45-degree angle to the street or the intersection. Beautiful place to put a sign right on the backside of the retention pond, so that you look over it to the sign. On the east end, or the southeast corner, there's also a sidewalk down by the detention center that is at a 45. So you'll see a picture of an aerial where I'm proposing 2 signs go. Robert was the one who asked about blue letters rather than black letters, and perhaps blue powder coating rather than black. On your information you have handed to you does not have a price for blue powder coating, but I just had that phone call a little bit ago, and in order to get blue powder here, it would add an additional $60 per sign, so $120 on top of what you have for a figure. One of the things that we can discuss is which of the letters would you like? The laser cut raised letters that I priced, or the stick-on vinyl letters? And Darren said the vinyl letters that stick on will last about as long as the raised letters. It's not a question of what lasts, it's a question of what artistic appeal you seek. So that's what I lay out before you, Mr. Chairman, and I guess what I'm inviting is a bit of discussion. Does this meet the needs, the desires? Is it not what you seek? If it is, I ask for permission to go ahead and order the manufacture of a couple signs. So that I'll accept questions.
Appreciate the legwork that you've done on this, Dave, and I'm going to look over to Larry first, but we're going to go around the table and see what comments and questions the commissioners might have.
Well, first of all, Commissioner Jones, I appreciate all the work you've done. This is amazing. This is great. I have no comments other than either the colors, it doesn't make a difference to me. I'm not a color person, but the match the trim of the building, I think that's a good idea.
So also the blue powder coating on the metal,
Yes.
adding $120.
And the locations make a lot of sense to me, just looking at the aerial photo. People will be able to see it from either end of the driveway, so I think that'll work.
Okay.
Bob?
No, I think he's done a great job of researching. Thank you.
Dwayne?
I would tend to agree with you guys. I don't know if, maybe get a little fancier and maybe make that out of stone or something instead of a metal frame, but that's just classy up a little bit. I don't know what that would cost. More money. I know, more money.
Well, and then Dave's already commented, that was the question I had. No matter what the dollar amount is, would this be out of your budget, or would this come out of some general fund item, or no matter what the cost is, where would the? Okay, so, but we have a source of funds, one place or the other, or a combination of both.
For those online or in the audience, what we're talking about, total cost is about $5,300.
Right.
So, with the options that are added here, it was 5130 or whatever to begin with. Find my figures.
Yeah, it's on the last page.
5130, and then we just added $120 to it. Now, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple other comments.
Okay.
As I was sitting visiting with our county administrator, I said, I see a need for two more things. That is either a resolution or a proclamation, and the second thing, a date to pull the tarps off of these signs and have our chairman read that proclamation or resolution in the presence of the widow of Russ's and the public. Our county clerk had an additional comment, and she says she doesn't get a chance to comment here, but Dory asked about a posting of the resolution or the proclamation, so people would know precisely what's going on. Do you want to state your position?
No, that was it. Just, I thought it would be nice to explain why we're naming it as such.
So,
Well, yeah, and my comments are related to what each other of you have said. First of all, I appreciate the wording that is here for the signage. Maybe some exploration of an alternative holder than just the metal holder, but just exploration of that, as Commissioner Dries noted. No question that sometime when we figure out when is it going to be done and when would be the time for the unveiling, we need to have Judy and the family, if they can, be present for that, just as they were in Topeka when the resolution was presented. And lastly, no doubt, the resolution can be framed and put in the building somewhere to explain what those signs are all about. So I think any of those things are doable. So I guess you approved last meeting by motion to proceed with this. Is there a consensus for Dave and Robert to continue this path to figure out what the final project might look like?
Mr. Chairman, one more. There's no installation in the price. I'm banking on, where did Kurt go? Is he back there? Something he's hiding, but I'm banking on Road and Bridge employees perhaps helping. First off, these signs are the metal rack, if you will, is going to be heavy, and we probably need a truck bigger than my little Honda to haul those out to 4 miles north of town, and then when they're powder coated, bring them back, and then we need to set those in concrete, and I'm going to suggest that we run a panel of concrete underneath of them so the lawnmower doesn't get into the sign. So we'll be just a few dollars extra for some sackcrete or whatever to get them installed.
I think the consensus is, Dave, for you and Robert to proceed with this this signage, and if there's other additional things that you bring that to us, and what the final cost is, and the source of those funds at a future board meeting, and then keeping those things in mind about the resolution and inviting Judy and the family to be present with us someday when we get that completed.
Okay, I appreciate the commission's work, and I will let somebody else draft the resolution or the proclamation.
Yep. And then we're going to move into the next subject, Dave, just to keep the flow, and you have a library board appointment request.
I do. It's in your packet. One of the board members who has served a year of a 4-year term has new duties assigned to him by USD 457, and so Andrew Lee, we thank him for his service, but he's asked to step down from the board. we need to replace his unexpired term. And we had two folks who have indicated an interest, and that would be Jay Cook and also Marcia Rupp. So it's up to the board to decide who they would like to appoint.
And just for clarification, and then I'll open it for comments and a motion. It's my recollection that Jay Cook, and based on the date of the letter that's on the screen, I think my recollection is correct. He was one of the applicants before when we chose a couple of others, and Marcia's is a new application. Doesn't mean one's any lesser qualified than the other, but just to help us keep it all in context. So with that, I'll open it for discussion or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we appoint Jay Cook, being that he had his application in, and we told him that we'd consider him for the next opening.
And there is a motion to appoint Jay Cook to the library board. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second. I know Jay personally. He's got the time and he uses the library a lot, so I think he would be a good addition.
And is seconded by Dwayne. Any further comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Dave, for both of those reports. Now, is it Mackenzie is going to come up or, okay, all right. I didn't know, sometimes it's a different presenter than what's on our list, so
Yep,
thank you.
no, I'm here this morning.
Yep, thank you for doing that, Mackenzie.
Problem. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Before you today is a waiver request from section 11-A.75 subsection 1 regarding non-conforming manufactured home parks at 805 North Bigelow Road in Finney County, Kansas. So Frank Wiebe is requesting a waiver from section 11-A.75 subsection 1 of the Finney County zoning regulations to place an additional manufactured home on the property generally located at 8405 North Bigelow Road. And in your packet, you see the aerial of the property. The property currently has 7 manufactured homes on it. The parcel contains approximately 23.8 acres and is zoned RR Rural Residential District. Finney County zoning regulations currently only permit 1 single-family home per lot unless it is zoned MHP Manufactured Home Park District. The applicant has already purchased and placed the additional manufactured home on the property without first applying for a permit. The parcel is currently non-conforming since it does contain 7 dwelling units. The property currently has only 1 water well that is shared between all 7 dwelling units, and there are some concerns that the well may not meet the standards outlined in the Finney County Environmental Code. There are 10 septic tanks on the property. You can see in your packet, this is generally where they're located, and most of them share with 2 manufactured homes per well or per septic system. A non-conforming use is defined in section 22 of the Finney County zoning regulations as any lot or structure lawfully occupied by a use at the time of the effective date of the zoning regulation or amendment hereto, which does not conform to the regulations of the district which it is situated. Non-conforming uses, as defined, may be permitted to continue, provided that no structural alterations except those required by law or resolution are made therein, and the non-conforming use is not discontinued or abandoned for a period of 1 year. Legally established at the time of the adoption of the county zoning regulations. Legally established at the time an amendment was made to this county zoning regulations so as to transfer the land to a more restricted district, as the case may be, or legally established prior to the adoption of the current county zoning regulations and amendments thereto. The idea of non-conforming property is that it will eventually become compliant with the current zoning regulations and no longer be non-conforming. The property has functioned as a non-conforming manufactured home park for many years. However, it has been more than 10 years since a new manufactured home has been placed on the property. Section 11-A 75 subsection 1 of the Finney County zoning regulations states that existing manufactured home parks that have not been grandfathered under section 070 of the regulations and/or manufactured home parks that do not conform with these regulations and conditions shall be considered as non-conforming and shall be allowed to continue under the provisions as stated in Article 22, Section 22.000, subsection B. Non-conforming uses permitted to continue. A manufactured home may be replaced. However, no non-conforming mobile home park shall be expanded, enlarged, or extended or rearranged from its current condition in any way unless it is done in conformance with the standards of the new manufactured home parks. This will include a detailed site plan prepared by a licensed architect or engineer with the state of Kansas. No manufactured home may be installed in a space which has been vacant for more than 1 year. If a non-conforming mobile home park is discontinued, the use of the land thereafter conform to the use permitted in the zone in which it is located. So Mr. Weeb has no intention of adding any additional manufactured homes in the future. If the governing body chooses to approve the waiver, there will be a total of 8 manufactured homes on the property. Staff recommends that if the governing body does decide to approve the waiver, to stipulate that no additional waivers may be granted to add any additional residential dwellings on the property in the future. So there's 2 alternatives before you today. Alternative 1, the governing body may approve the waiver. Alternative 2, the governing body may not approve the waiver. And staff is unable to make any recommendation for this waiver. And Mr. Weeb is here today to talk with you if you have any questions for him.
I would ask that he be permitted to come to the podium and speak on his behalf.
Hi, everyone. I don't know, I am nervous. So, but I try to do my best. So here, a year ago, I went into the office and asked for a permit to take out to a permit to put another trailer up. And at that time, the answer was yes. She just told me I could put a trailer up at the lot 7. So, and at that time, when I have the answer, then that trailer was already sold. And then what she told me, that have to be a newer or a 86. And then after I have that trailer, then just bring a copy in. You want a copy from that trailer. So that trailer was sold at that time, so I've been looking and looking. So now I find another one. So now I just bought it and move it in, so I figured I have an answer for that trailer. I can put that at that lot, I can put it in. So I went to Weekland Electric to sign a contract for put on, electricity. And then I have to bring that contract to the city office. So then later on, I find that they don't sign it. So there was a problem. So I don't know nothing about that. So because I have the word, Ashley, I could put a trailer up. And now my son, he's here, that's David, and his wife, Eva, they want to move in that trailer. So now I would appreciate that. When we could make a way, but I could put somebody in there, but they can move in there, because when not, I borrowed the money from the bank to pay it, so that's not, but I did pay it cash, because I don't have the cash, because I worked for 23 years here in Holcomb for Mike Braun. So, and then that what I make is not enough to pay my property, the payments, and pay this trailer.
Thank you for your comments. And based on your comments, I would ask for Trent or Mackenzie or someone to help explain, or Alicia, whoever, help explain the discrepancy that was just voiced by Mr. Wiebe.
I mean, I really am sorry, I mean, but that's coming out this way. So.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your comments, and you did fine, even if you're nervous, so.
Morning. We met with Mr. Weeb a couple of years back when Carol was still here and explained the situation to him. As a non-conforming park, typically, if they don't have a home there for over a year, they're not allowed to put another home back, is how the regulations read. His property is not zoned for a manufactured home park on top of that, and so we explained to him the process of if he wanted to, what steps he would need to take in order to put the home on the property. And so I think there's just been a misunderstanding between staff and the applicant on the process. He is correct, we didn't sign off for electrical. There was no, the permit wasn't issued at the time, so how it goes is you're supposed to pull a permit with all of your utility, staff reviews it, and then we will sign off on an electric utility form. However, Mr. Wiebe has done it not in the correct order, and so that's why we're also here today.
Okay, all right, thank you for that explanation. Now, yes, now we'll start with commissioner comments and questions.
Alicia, a question. This trailer park's been there for a long period of time. Have you ever had any other complaints from the neighbors about how it operated or anything like that?
No, we have not had any other complaints.
Bob?
You make this statement about the water well may not conform. What does that mean?
So I don't believe that the water well has been inspected. It's been there for many years, as well as the existing septic tanks that are out there. And so we'd ask that he would, get that inspected to make sure it is in compliance.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, Dwayne?
I'm having a conflict on this one. I totally understand the grandfathered in position, and as a commission, we've pretty much denied anything that, such as this, because it was not grandfathered in. So, but I can totally understand the situation. How much paperwork, how much dollars is involved for him to convert this into a residential trailer park?
There would be several dollars that he would have to put in for that. As McKinsey stated in the regulations, what's required for a new manufactured home park, he'd have to rezone it, and then he'd have to hire a design professional to lay out the entire park. And that includes streets, sidewalks, paved parking, lighting, all of those items.
Dave?
I have a couple of questions. Do you know what sign was, and it may still be there at the entry to that area off of Bigelow?
I am not.
Didn't that have a sign, something about a north wind or whatever trailer park?
No, there's not a sign that's south wind.
There was when I came to Garden City in 1980, that park was there, and there was a sign indicating that was a trailer park. Now, maybe it's not a trailer park anymore. And then the well, because that served more than 8 people in my emergency management days, I believe was listed with as one of our public water wells. We have our emergency manager here. Do you happen to have a list of those?
I do, but I'm not familiar enough to.
Can you call your assistant and see if he could check and see if that water well is listed as public? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Learn things here. All right.
Well, anything else, Dave?
Well, that's it.
So, my questions were surrounding, I understand the conformance with the home design, the type of home and all that, but mine was more from the septic and the water, because I know what we're going through in our subdivision, and this is a small thing compared to our subdivision, I grant you that. But if it is in fact a public water supply, KDHE needs to be involved with regard to water quality, and that's what I would make sure that we have some contingency with regard to that if we do grant a waiver. But it probably needs to be checked out even if we don't grant a waiver, whether it's a public water supply or not. And then two, well, it's not 2 units hooked to each septic, but it's laid out to that where it could be that, and whether the septic systems, the 10 systems that are there, are viable for long-term. Those were my questions, but the water supply is one that I would have a fairly significant question about, regardless of whether the waiver is granted. So, oh, yeah, Dwayne, go ahead.
Mr. Wiebe, how long have you owned this property?
About 10 years.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioners, if I could just interject really briefly, because I was involved in this conversation, and I just wanted to make sure, one of the things that we discussed, if the commission does choose to grant this waiver, was creating a memorandum of understanding with Mr. Wiebe, just with regard to no additional, despite the number of lots being there, that the understanding is that no more additions to the residences there be added. Just for your information, that was something we discussed that we thought was probably important, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Because this isn't the only rural trailer court out there that is going to experience this same thing. And we just want to make sure that we have some consistency and that the public understands that this type of waiver is rare and there are reasons not to grant it. We just want to make sure that everyone understands that issue, that there are significant safety and environmental issues with this type of residential property.
And tying to that, that's part of my question on the water. One of our mandates as an extension of state government is public health. And I think we need to continually be concerned of whether it be this waiver or other things that we're asked about. We need to be conscious of our public health mandate, and whether it be water or sewer or whatever it might be. So that was the context for my question. Commissioners, what is your desire with regard to the request for waiver?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the waiver subject to affirmation by KDHE of the water supply and its compliance. And secondly, subject to what Linda just addressed, that this is the last one, if you will, waiver-wise.
There is a motion. I think that was pretty clear. So is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Larry. Further discussion by the commissioners.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Would we do well to table this until our next meeting and in the meantime check with KDHE?
Comments?
Comments, Dave, this trailer park's been there for a long period of time. And so, and no complaints from the residents or people around it. So that always
Been there at least 40 years. Because
brings up a lot of pluses. And it was designed for a lot more units than that are there now. I think we need to let him proceed with the understanding, with the motion that the water well gets checked out. And,
so that happens.
yeah.
And then it's not part of the motion, but the understanding is if there's deficiencies with regard to that well, Mr. Wiebe's going to be responsible for bringing it up to standard. So I think that's inferred in the motion. Anything else? Any other comments? Dwayne, anything else?
I use this forgiveness over permission thing from my wife a lot, but it's getting kind of I think we're setting a precedent here that we shouldn't be doing so many forgivenesses. So, but.
I respect that. Yeah, when the forgivenesses outnumber the permissions, then I think we've got to look at our guidelines, our regulations, and so forth. Any more comments? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 And all opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
And just with the understanding that there's those requirements, or those stipulations, no additional waivers, and the well must be checked for quality. So, yeah, thank you. All right. And Alicia is going to present to us a second waiver request.
Yes, let me just, alrighty. This morning, we've got a request from Justin Gallegos. He's the property owner at 3304 North VFW Road. He's requesting a waiver from section 23.080 of the Finney County zoning regulations to install a manufactured home that does not meet the residential design manufactured home standards, which would be an RDMH. This property is zoned LR, low density residential, which doesn't allow for your typical manufactured homes or single wides, as you would call them. The owner has already purchased the home and was unaware of the regulations that were in play, just because he already has an existing single wide home there. And as we've explained in the past, for non-conforming properties, you can continue to use the property as is. It's when you change something, you have to come up to the current regulations. So Mr. Gallegos has removed the single wide manufactured home and hopes to replace it with a new one. It is a 2022 single wide that he purchased out of Lakin. And one of the requirements for homes is that it be on a permanent foundation. Now, Mr. Gallegos is here and has stated that if the waiver is approved, he has no issues installing that single wide on a permanent foundation. So that is the request you have before you. I believe Mr. Gallegos is here, if you would like him to come and mention anything.
Yes, Justin, go ahead and come forward.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm also super nervous. Never been in front of a crowd like this.
We're friendly.
Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, I obviously don't know a whole lot about putting in homes or whatever, so I, got a hold of the dealership in Lakin, and, asked them, what I can get purchased for a certain price range. So, well, this one came up and we went through the process like as if it was gonna go, fine. And then, come to find out it's not fine. So, now this property, it's located kind of, I don't know, I would say it's like the nicest area, or kind of next to a feedlot too. So, I just didn't think that there'd be so many restrictions on that. That's just my ignorance, basically. So the home that they're wanting to put there is kind of, it's out of like budget for what I was trying to do there. So I just was requesting the waiver.
And two things, and Alicia might need to speak to this as well, but Justin, I appreciate it, and I've known Justin for a while, and he's a great repairman, so.
Thank you.
But anyhow, if it's my recollection, Justin, the reason that this all started and that you removed the old one was you have a family who's in need of some assistance, but there was no way they could afford anything otherwise.
That is right.
Is that what started this process?
It is, yes. I was trying to help a, low-income family in need, and I just, had the land and it was unoccupied. And so, but the trailer was just, it was basically unlivable. So I just yanked it off there and just was gonna get a brand new one in there. It would have been perfect for them, but they would definitely not be able to afford the modular or whatever it is, the HDMI, whatever that is. They wouldn't be able to afford that. So it just wouldn't be feasible for them.
And then secondly, and I'm looking at Justin and Alicia because we've had this conversation. It's my understanding, Alicia, that the dealer for this manufactured home that Justin worked with had been informed on previous occasions of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Am I correct, before Justin even approached them with his project?
Yes, that is correct. There are a couple dealerships around Finney County that we have worked with multiple times and expressed and given them the zoning regulations that outline which homes are allowed, and have asked that they call us and check with us before they sell a home to somebody, so that we can make sure that the home that they're wanting to purchase is able to be put on that lot. And that it just doesn't always seem to work out with some of these dealers.
And in this particular case, that dealer did not contact a neighborhood development office and say, this is the home that's being requested? Am I correct
Correct.
on that? Yeah. So Justin went into this blind, if you will, as far as what the requirements were, and part of it was due to the dealer not contacting the development office,
Correct.
neighborhood office. Yeah.
Quick question for Alicia. So the only thing that he needs to do is put it on a permanent foundation?
So with the current regulations, it's not just put it on a permanent foundation. It would be to purchase the RDMH home, which are manufactured homes that look more like a modular or a stick built. They've got the roof pitch, they've got the overhang, they've got the gutters. And that's just what our regulations permit for at this time.
And if I'm understanding correctly, either Justin or Alicia, gutters will be put on this home if the waiver is granted. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Dave?
I have a quick question for Alicia or Trent or somebody. Looking at this lot, it looks to me like it's almost land-bound. What's its access, and is that a public street that's right below the red car in the picture, or is?
It's an ingress egress easement. So it's not actual right of way, but they do have access to get in and out.
Is it from where that red car is on the map, or where is that egress?
Yeah, right just south of where the red car is would be their access off into VFW Road.
I can see some land-bound properties there. So, anyway, it has nothing to do with putting a mobile home there, but.
Dwayne?
No question.
Bob?
We had a similar situation in the last couple of months where we had this quote-unquote, what constitutes modular versus mobile home. And I think it was Dave that talked about metal roofing, and that seemed to be the thing that differentiated whether it was a modular home or a trailer house or mobile home or whatever you're gonna call it. And at that time, we judged that maybe we needed to rethink or relook at that particular building code or zoning restriction or whatever it is that's holding this up. Is this the same problem that we granted a waiver on 2 months ago?
No, this would be different. The last waiver that you guys granted was strictly for the metal roof, so it met all of the other standards. It's just the metal roof that didn't make it an RDMH. This one is different, and it doesn't meet any of the RDMH standards. It's just a typical single wide or manufactured home. So the single wide manufactured homes are typically only permitted in a park. In a manufactured home park, it's where you rent the lot from the owner and you're able to place the home out there. And then there is a zoning district that does allow for them as long as they are on a permanent foundation. It's staff's understanding that a couple of years back, the county looked into allowing single-wide manufactured homes on any lot, no matter what the zoning district was, but that was not what the commission wanted at that time.
And so the waiver, where we would be, if we grant the waiver, is waiving the requirement of the, what do we call that? RDMH mobile home. And if this proposal is granted that waiver, gutters on the structure and permanent foundation are two of the things that are addressing that. The pitch of the roof is one thing that's not being addressed. Am I correct on that?
That is
I mean, other
correct.
than the size and so forth, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners?
Chairman, I would offer a motion to approve the waiver as requested with the conditions that they'll put it on the concrete as previously stated.
And I would also add that the other condition be guttering put on, but he's agreed to that, but I think it needs to be in the motion. So
Okay.
there is a motion. I think it's clearly stated. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to grant the waiver for this request and with two conditions. And any further comments?
I guess I would like to add a third condition, going back to Linda's memorandum of understanding, that this is one unit on this property, and that memorandum of understanding would not allow any future unless it is upgraded to a different type of zoning.
So no additional waivers on this property is basically what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
And would let's see, who made the motion? Dave did. Would you accept that as an amendment to the motion? And the seconder would
Yes.
accept that as well? All right, that will be included in the motion. Further comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would simply ask to resend a reminder to these businesses on what is allowed, and let's try not to let this happen again.
Yeah, and I think Alicia had referenced to me multiple, it was either emails or texts or something, but it was in written form prior, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. But I don't know how we force that, but yes, it's put Justin in a really bad spot. It really has. Other comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Justin, thanks for coming, visiting with us. And maybe you understand the process a little bit better than you did before, so. Yeah, thank you, Justin. All right. Well, we're getting the whole staff here in front of us today, so.
Hey, we thought we'd grace all of you with all of us. So,
Yeah, but why does the boss have the last say? I mean, that's what I want to know.
Well, this takes special care, so want to give them the utmost treatment. Yeah. Now, we all have a different need to serve today. So, good morning, Chairman and Commission. For your consideration today, we have a waiver request. This is for Jacob or Jake and Jennifer Cunningham, property owner of 107 Mayfair Court, is requesting waiver from section 23.040 of the Fenney County zoning regulations to install a pool without a fence. The application for a new swimming pool was submitted for review and issuance of a permit on 4/25 of 2022 by the owner, Jake Cunningham. Upon review, staff noted the barrier and/or fence requirement as required by 23.040 of the Finney County zoning regulations. The 23.040 swimming pools regulation states, swimming pools of permanent construction which are not enclosed within a building shall be set back at least 5 foot from all property lines and shall be completely surrounded by a fence or having a height of at least 6 feet. There shall be no opening larger than 36 square inches except for gates, which shall be equipped with self-closing, self-latching devices. The International Swimming Pool and Spa Code requires a 48-inch barrier around pools unless the cover meets the standard ASTM F1346, Chapter 3, General Compliance section. The applicant submitted the pool cover specifications which meets that ASTM standard. And we've got within your document and packet the letter of request, communication back and forth between us and the applicant. The applicant is represented here today. Jennifer is here with us. The alternatives, governing body may approve the waiver. Alternative number 2, the governing body may not approve the waiver. Staff recommends approval of the waiver since the pool cover meets the building code requirements. And at this time, if you have any more questions for myself and or the applicant.
And before we go into comments and questions, just for clarification, for public's information, on our agenda and on the subject line of the memo, it referenced 103 Mayfair Court. but all the information is about 107, including the map, and so we need to just make sure that everyone is on the same page, that the property is 107, not 103, so.
Correct, thank you.
With that, I'm going to look this way first. Dave, any comments or questions to
Well, I have a question
Trent?
of Trent. Did the applicant happen to send his attorney today to represent interest?
No, I think he sent the big guns in, so,
That's my only
yes.
question.
His legal representative appears to be sitting in the back of the room, so.
That's right.
Any questions or comments? Now, Larry and Bob?
Go ahead. I guess my question would be that if our code is in conflict with the other section, should we be granting a waiver, or should we be changing the code and eliminating the 6-foot fence requirement and utilizing the other one so we don't have to issue a waiver? We can just change the code if you do agree that this other statement, in fact, covers the condition at hand.
And I'm going to look first to our county counselor and then to Trent. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm anticipating something that is a dire need this county has, which is to update its codes. And so I'm going to be talking to all of you about that when we get to the council report today, and kind of what steps I'd like us to start taking for that very purpose, Commissioner Kreitzer, that our codes are woefully outdated, and I think Trent would agree.
Yeah, so through these different situations, we learn of the conflicts that we have. I do support the building code as it is driven by safety more than it is aesthetics necessarily. And being conscious of time with the construction and with the applicants, that's why we're here today with a waiver. I don't disagree with amending that regulation in support of the building code. Obviously, that is the purpose why we recommended approval of this waiver. So I think in the near future, among some other things like the metal roof, we'll have some different revisions coming back for your consideration.
And we had talked earlier about code enforcement being a part of that discussion, I think, as well.
Yes, and we've talked multiple times since then, and we've got some more discussion to go on that. One thing I will note just on this standard, so there's been plenty of pool cover manufacturers in my history doing this that have individual testing that they have performed themselves for people to stand on covers. This ASTM number has only been until now, this is the first pool cover I've seen that has met the standard, been your spas, your hot tubs, and that is essentially that hard cover that people can stand on if they so desire. So it's kind of a new thing, and I was grateful to see that they actually submitted testing that supported that, so.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the waiver to 107 Mayfair? Mayfair.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
And then I was, before you rushed in with that motion, I was going to ask if Jennifer had any comments, but this would be an appropriate time if you do in the comments on the motion that's been moved and seconded at this point.
We just appreciate your consideration of this as we're pretty far along in the process. And so as this was brought to our attention and the conflict in both the building code and the zoning regulations was concerning to us at this stage. And so we just appreciate your consideration today.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, go ahead.
I am glad to hear that this is somebody can walk across it, because I will guarantee you, children in the neighborhood will walk across it.
So this is our second pool. We had one on Wheat Ridge at 649. We did have about a 7 or 8 foot fence there, so it wasn't an issue. But our kids in the off season of the pool would put the hose on top of the cover and fill it with water and use it as a slip-in slide. So our 150-pound dog would run across it. So I'm very confident that it can hold weight.
Okay, thank you. Other comments before we vote on the motion? If not, the motion is to grant this waiver and for a pool cover instead of a fence, requirement of the fence. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and fortunately, that clock says 10 till, so it's easy to say. We will reconvene at 10 o'clock.
operation plan.
And as I look at my agenda, I believe emergency operation plan is the next thing on the agenda, and Paul, our new emergency manager, is on deck. Welcome, Paul.
Morning.
Morning.
Well, underneath 48929D, we're supposed to update this thing every 5 years. And I got it handed to me. We got it updated. We had to do some digging on some things that was kind of lacking. We had kind of a long laundry list that we needed to update. So we got it updated with, I had Skylar Swartz, the EMS director, also help with this, but we do meet the definitions now underneath Kansas Planning Committee for the SARE Title III, the ADA, and then the NIMS requirements. So what we need now is a promulgation within 90 days to show that this was approved and get it submitted back to the state for final approval.
And I'm sure all of the commissioners read it word for word, page by page. No, I say that.
Well, I kind of did, and it kind of blurred together, and I omitted your name. That's one name I've got to go back in, but I'll talk to Mr. Bork, and I don't believe that's going to be an issue going forward.
Because it's supposed to be the chair of
Yeah, it is.
the commission. Yeah.
And just some of that kind of late at night kind of blurs together sometimes.
And that's not a problem, but I thought it was probably supposed to.
It is, yes.
Dave?
I was going to point out, used to be also the local emergency planning committee needed to sign off. They still do they not?
Yes, yes.
So it's a two-step process of local approval going to the state for the.
And we have a LEPC meeting, I believe, May the 10th.
Yeah, it got postponed, supposed to be tomorrow, got
Yep.
postponed a week.
Yes.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would offer a motion to agree to the promulgation of the local emergency operations plan and that the chair be authorized to sign.
There is a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dwayne. Now, any comments or questions or concerns to express with Paul? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
All righty.
Thank you, Paul. Anything else?
Nope, June 30th at 27, we'll be back here again.
I have one question not related to that, but just a procedural thing. I know out in our subdivision, we've had a boil water advisory at Towns Riverview, and it should be rescinded, but KDHE has not rescinded it yet because everything has been addressed that was needing to be addressed.
Okay.
But process, any orders like that from KDHE, it doesn't make any difference if our subdivision, but any orders like that from KDHE come to you and you disseminate that to the county. Is that the process?
That's what's supposed to be the process. I didn't get that until, I didn't see it initially. It was emailed to me by somebody else, so I didn't see that initially.
Oh, okay. But the process is you are the contact that's supposed to receive that from KDHE?
Yes, and I finally got put on all the email list and everything, so going forward, I should be able to receive that.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
You bet. As soon as I know, I'll let everybody know.
Yeah, I know you will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, I believe our sheriff is on the agenda.
You like that? All my guys are back there, way back there.
Yeah, I know.
They don't want to sit up here with me. I don't-
Yeah, what is the story with that?
I don't know. They had me a little worried. So anyway, we're back again. We've gotten two proposals. The first one you've already seen. We have another proposal from RHS. I guess what we want to do is go over there and just kind of show you some differences. We kind of broke it down to a chart here as to who offers what. We are actually also wanting to add a mental part of our, not just medical, but we deal with a lot of mental issues up in the jail as well as medical. times have changed and it's becoming something we need to start looking at. So we both of them are gonna offer a 40-hour, one is an RN, one is an LPN. ACH has offered an RN, and RHS has offered a LPN. The request for just without the mental from ACH is 180,000. It hasn't changed. I got a new proposal from them. I think you guys should have that. So they kept everything the same as the original that I showed you. RHS's proposal without mental is 222,000 for the year. With the mental, you see it goes up to 216,768.50 for ACH, 240, what is that, 6? I believe it is, yes, for RHS. Some of the questions that were asked of me the last time we were here, and that was the on-call, which is addressed there, that yes, they'll both have somebody on call. The nurse that your 40-hour will not be the nurse that'll be on call. That person will not get called and come back to the jail. They do, both companies will provide a doctor or a APRN that will take questions over the phone. They'll direct the staff as to what needs to be done. They will not arrive at the jail either. They'll just be there for advice. As far as the mental health coverage portion of it, ACH has offered to have a person actually come to the jail in person for 5 hours a week. I believe RHS has a telehealth where they can do that over the, I guess, the internet or Zoom or however they do that. Staff training, that's very important. Both medical staffs will have their policies, and we need to have our officers trained up there in dispensing medication. ACH has also offered kind of a officer health, as you may say, a mental portion for officers that go through or are struggling. They offer that kind of training for them as well. RHS does not. And ACH, you'll see up there, they offer training. It's kind of at our own. They have an online course too that they offer that jail staff can get on there and review and go over kind of at their own pace. RHS doesn't currently have that. And ACH also will keep some medication on site. RHS does not have that. One of the things I guess that we look at up in the jail, and the staff and I have taken a very close look, there's a lot of close comparisons. One of the things I guess we have to look at is ACH is in the business of correctional health where RHS is not. They're wanting to get into that, and I certainly appreciate that from them. I think either one of these companies would be very good to work with. I just would point out that ACH is, that's all they do.
I know you have representative, one of the vendors here in the room. Do you want to open it up to vendors speaking to this, or that's your call?
Okay. Well, I didn't ask either one of them to be here. I think they came here on their own. I think it was asked of me last time too about the contracts and the annual percentage raise. I've talked to ACH, and both of these contracts, I think we both need, everybody needs to understand is still negotiable. And as ACH said, if we want 3% annually, that's instead of that 5% and the other part, they said 3% was fine with them. And of course, we addressed the on-call. And I think the other question was under ACH's contract, they had non-county inmates in there, and it was kind of a question as what we would consider as non-county. I had them clarify that. What they said was anything that we would have a contract, say with Kearney County, for example, if we had a contract with them and we house their inmates for them, that would be what they consider. What we currently have in our jail, they consider our inmates. So he basically told me, whatever number we give them, if we have 100 inmates, if that's what they're basing it off of, it doesn't matter if it's Highway Patrol, Garden City PD, our own arrest, or Holcomb PD, there are inmates, and that's what they're basing their inmate population. So those are considered county inmates, not non-county. So it'd be anything we have a contract with. And they said they would still cover those. They would just probably be charged a little different, because obviously what they're getting at is they would take care of their health of them if there was health issues while they're in our jail. It would just be up to us, like if it was Kearney County, to charge them, and of course they would charge us for it, and we'd turn around and charge Kearney County for that.
And that, one question, Larry, hold your thought, please. That is something that's not different than what we've been doing currently, is it? I mean, where we've had the health department helping us or a nurse in there, that we've been able to bill those other counties?
Yes, if we housed other counties, and right now we do with Garden City Police Department, if they bring theirs in and they're under municipal charges and there's medical issues there, whether we have to take them to the ER or something, we do bill the city for that. Now, if they're on district charge, they pretty much become our responsibility,
But that's really not a change in
no,
procedure?
no.
Yeah, okay. Larry?
It's your recommendation, Mike, that we can look at the bottom line on the mental health too, right?
Yes, I think that needs to be addressed, and I've discussed it with my staff, and I guess, and probably, I'm gonna point at Commissioner Dave Jones. When we were working the street, there was always a thing back then that after midnight, if you were dealing with somebody, they'd probably been drinking. In today's world, it seems like when we deal with people, there's more of a mental issue in our community, and so obviously, if we arrest those are ending up in our jail, so we probably have more of a mental issue to deal with in the jail than we ever have before.
I would agree.
Thank you.
I'm gonna look at Robert real quick. He's referenced in the memo that some ARPA funds might be able to be utilized for the first year and then budgeted going forward. I assume the two of you have talked about that some, and is that your desire as well to access some of the ARPA funds?
I think given the, if the commission chooses to move ahead with this service, and given that we are reaching mid-year, that my suggestion is that we seriously look at the counties received ARPA funds to make sure they qualify for it in order to make this thing happen. We are in the budgeting process, and then we can move forward and budget for it for '23. But that would have the least impact to the county.
Okay. Dave, I'm gonna look over here. Any comments or questions to
No,
our sheriff?
I'm ready to vote.
And Dwayne?
I just need a little clarification. Do they use a monthly average on inmates for the set fees, or is this you set that number right up front?
Well, they have a set fee. ACH is based off, like I said, we gave them 100 inmates. I believe RHS really didn't establish a number of inmates, so I'll refer to ACH that if we're under 100 inmates, they have, I think we discussed it last time, a formula where they credit us back whatever that number may be. If we're over, then obviously that same formula they apply, we have to pay that little extra.
Is that based on a monthly average or day-to-day, or?
I think it's a monthly average.
But these numbers that we have in front of us are based on 100 inmates?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Bob, questions or comments?
The after-hours services that would be available, do they have an hourly rate for that?
That's included on the overall price.
And that's unlimited, or?
Yeah, it might be my assumption that it is. I don't see that they're, and I don't know that we'd call them that much. We really don't. Just in past experience with the nurse we had there before, I think we were averaged maybe 5 or 6 hours a month, or well, probably about 2 weeks. So maybe 10 hours a month.
Wait, oh, go ahead. Go.
The prescription drugs that quote-unquote will be on site, is that something that the sheriff's department at their cost puts them in until there is a place that they can be charged or whatever else as far as a reimbursement?
Back from the inmate itself?
Yes.
I will have to direct. Which one of you guys can answer that? Kyle? Kyle's our guy who deals with the billing up there.
Morning. Could you kind of re-clarify the question?
Well, basically, it says that you're going to have some prescription drugs on site. Does the sheriff's department pre-fund those, pay the expenses, whatever else, from whomever you purchase them, and then later reclaim that money from whoever uses those drugs?
Well, from my understanding, those are provided by ACH.
The ones that are on site.
The ones that are on site, and then the individuals will be charged as they need them. They're just they're the most common antibiotics, some pain, non-controlled pain meds, stuff like that. That the most common drugs will be kept on site, so that way we're not trying to send off for them. But yeah, it would be provided by ACH, and then the reimbursement would go after they were prescribed to the inmate.
Okay, so it's not an additional expense to this contract, it's a convenience for ACH to have those on site?
That's my understanding.
Prescription?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just, I look at it and it's gonna be a significant piece of money, and, whether it's $216,000 or $250,000 when it's over for a year. And we used to have a system that worked using a health department employee for probably 70 or 80,000 that we no longer have. That, I guess it's a shame we don't have that old system, but I know we need something. So thank you for your information.
And I appreciate what Bob just said about what we've had and what we're looking toward. It's my impression that even though it is costing additional dollars, whichever one of these options we would take, that there are some additional features that we didn't have before, such as the mental health and so forth. Am I correct in that? And
Yes.
I'm not trying to insinuate that they would be dollar for dollar offsets. I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying, but we would gain some additional services that we did not have previously.
Yes, the mental health would be a big asset, and especially if we were able to have somebody up there that could prescribe, if we had somebody that needed medication for a mental health issue. That's something we never had. I mean, we've dealt with Compass, they've done a great job coming up, but it's nice to have somebody on the floor.
Okay, fair enough. So what is the board's desire with regard to this? You heard the sheriff's recommendation to engage ACH.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend the approval of ACH with the mental health aspect to the bid.
Okay,
Of $216,768.50.
for the first year. So, and that's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman, with the condition that we seek ARPA funding.
Okay. And then I would just clarify, as we're going toward the vote of this, for those who do not have access to all of our information, that ACH stands for Advanced Correctional Health Care. Any further comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes. And we appreciate Growell's, or RHS, interest in this, and certainly we appreciate what you're doing for the county at this point with the other services. Thank you. Thank you for your interest in putting numbers together. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, Beth, I think you're up on the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioners, for hearing us. We have today a proposal for you to accept a bid for INA alert for a new security access system. We've worked with IT for the past several months on getting this bid, so if you'll go to the next page, Tyler, please, thank you. So the history of this is the system itself was put in when the detention center was built. It went through an upgrade in 2005. As of this point, this system is what they call end of life and unsupported, which means when we call, they say, we usually call probably a couple times a month. It's getting awfully glitchy. But they say, is this system really still working? We don't know. We can offer some suggestions. So we are in desperate need of a new security system. So the background of this is we started with IT back in 2021 when we thought there was some CARES Act money. That funding stream was not available at that time. So we put that on hold. In speaking with the county administrator, we knew that the bond retirement for that building was going to be coming up in 2022. So in March, we put out a formal bid for the process again, knowing that the bond retirement for the building, and there'd be a few months of sales tax collected after that to use for this project. So in the bid comparisons, we received 4 bids, and I apologize for the amount of paperwork in those bids. The technical aspect, I'll leave to Doug. Believe it or not, I am not tech savvy at all. Out of the 4, we had 2 best bids that met the bid requirements. Excellent referrals for both of those bids. Both offices have local offices in Garden City. We do have Jordan Smith with INA. He's the Executive Vice President of Operations with INA, if you do have any questions for him. Do you have?
Just as far as the comparison of the 2 primary bids, technically they both have very good feature sets. They both will do a very excellent job of door lock and security for this building. So from a technical perspective, there's not a difference that would cause us to say this one is better than this one. Really, it comes down to pricing, features, and support.
So the alternatives, the recommendation itself is the INA with the 3-year support plan at $2,400 a year. We also put in there a 10% contingency not to exceed the final bid, just because they will not know if there are any issues once they get up in the building and start doing the wiring. The alternative is to just do a 1-year support with the 10%, and then the other alternative is to decline the bids and reinitiate the bid process.
Okay, Larry, I'm looking at you first, I guess.
A couple questions. I guess this would be more for Robert. We will collect enough excess sales tax to cover this, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. You have a estimate?
I'm going to look at Dory. I'm trying to recall what the remaining balance was. We spoke about it a few weeks ago, and I just don't remember.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, anyway,
seems like we have it. Yeah, it seems like we, following our paying off that debt, I believe we had somewhere around 500,000 remaining in it with 3 more months to collect.
Trista did say the most recent sales tax collections were up from last year, so continuing to do well.
That could include a sign, maybe.
Correct. Yep.
Question, Beth, they have any idea the wiring in the old part of the structure in the original JDC, they don't know what they're going to get into there, right?
Correct.
Okay, and that's what the 10%.
That's what the 10% is.
Bob?
Yeah, I think the research that you've done and obviously is a lot more important than what we'll be doing, but I do think the longer support package would be better because there's a lot of strange things that happen during that first year that you want some continuity down the line.
Correct.
That's all.
Dave?
I don't understand this. I read for hours. I finally decided I'm confused. I'm gonna quit and come and listen, so I'm kidding, of course, but that was a whole bunch more information than we really could digest. That's it.
Dwayne?
Your annual support plan that you're looking at, is that kind of comparable to what you already have in your budget for a support plan or expenses for this system?
That would be included in the financial. It would be a one-time payment for the 3 years.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions. I depend on staff to do the due diligence and come up with the best bid recommendations. So, what is the board's desire?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the recommendation and go forward with this purchase.
Okay, and then we'll just add in there, Bob, with INA alert in the amount of $285,874.34, and additional fee for 3 years support at $2,400 a year. Is that correct?
That's fine, yes.
It's the wrong number.
Nope, I was wanting to add, if you could put,
2,400.
Oh, okay.
yeah, if you could authorize either the county administrator, Robert Reese, or myself to sign any documents regarding the contract.
And I forgot also that it adds, that 285 includes the 10% contingency, or is that above? That's above.
That's above.
Okay, so we need to include that 10% contingency. And I would suggest that we have the administrator be the signator on that. And Bob made the motion, and do you accept everything that I clarified?
Yeah, just not to exceed 10% for contingency.
Well, yeah, right. And is there a second to that motion? Second. Moved and seconded. I think everyone understands that the base bid and support and not to exceed 10% contingency, and Robert being the signator. Any additional comments or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
all your work.
Thank you.
Next one, I'm going to spearhead. Not last meeting, 2 meetings ago, I handed to each of you commissioners a document, and if you would go back, whoever's running the computer, 2 or 3 pages, because what's on the screen is right, right there. We titled it on the agenda, Wildlife Services. I am speaking to the City Commission tomorrow at their commission meeting, and they have put it on the agenda as a blackbird issue, and that's really what it is. But several years ago, with regard to nuisances and noise and nuisances being dirtiness and damage to vegetation, damage to HVAC systems, other utilities, lost yields, and I haven't even talked one-on-one with them, but I'm assuming there's probably some lost yields out in the Milo fields. But I have talked to a couple feedlots, and they're concerned because of the cost of gain being higher than it should be because of the feed for the birds and so forth, but primarily because it's such a distraction for people visiting and wanting to relocate here, and we need workers. We need people to come in and not be turned off by the dirtiness and noise and as they stay in a hotel or things like that. And many businesses, we've seen the damages, we've seen some of the reactions to it. Bank of the West took out trees. Walgreens area is a terrible area for this. We have a hotel and business on the east side of the town that are fighting the blackbird starling issue, as I have summarized it. So about a year ago, I just contacted one of our prominent business people in town who is involved in agriculture and said, do you think we have a problem? And he said, absolutely, we have a problem. And so from that, I was delayed in going forward because human resources weren't available during the last couple of years to do field studies and road trips because of the pandemic. And I reinitiated the conversation at the first of this year. And early this year, Anthony Reardon, who is one of the extension agents with our new district, West Plains District, coordinated a visit by USDA and K-State folks, and they made that visit in early February, which was referenced on the first page of this document. And they toured businesses, they went into residential areas, they visited with feedlots, and they visited with the city utilities that are having issues with regard to the birds. And then following the tour, USDA Representative Jason Clough, who comes out of Manhattan, authored the report that's on the screen, and I gave you copies of that last time I was here. But what I wanted to talk about today, and the reason it's on the agenda as a business item, is this is not a new issue to the wildlife services of USDA. In 2005 to 2010, Congress had directed funds for blackbird control projects at confined animal operations, which would be feedlots and dairies. And most of those that they worked with during that period of time are in southwest Kansas, and that's why some of the feedlots who currently have managers who were with the feedlots at that time are very aware of that project from 2005 to 2010. And they were recipients of the services, but at the end of that 4 or 5 year period, USDA cut the funding from its budget, and so the person who was doing that mitigation process was eliminated from the budget, and those services were lost. And since 2010, the bird population, the blackbird starling bird population, has just simply continued to increase within our county as well as within the southwest Kansas region. So now whoever is on the computer, if you'll go back, I think it's back one page, down to those three options. And I'll let you look through the handout that I gave you, you being the commissioners. But Jason gave three options, and visiting with Jason, visiting with the business owner who I've stayed in contact with, visiting with the feedlots that I talked to just in the last couple of weeks, I would look at these as priorities, not just options, but as priorities. So option one being priority one and so forth. If there is interest in trying to address this concern, whether it be from a visitor worker standpoint, whether it be from a cost to agriculture or a cost to businesses and so forth. But he has outlined option one as having a person on site to help with Finney County, as well as it could be hired out to other counties or other areas that want to be involved. They call the funders of a project like this, they call cooperators, and the person in option one who would be engaged, it would actually be an employee of USDA through the Wildlife Services, and then an annual payment would be made to fund that position, and we'll get to that in a second. But if it's from multiple sources, if there's multiple cooperators, say the county, the city, and individual businesses, for example, the amount of service that someone gets is directly correlated to the amount of percentage of, not amount, but the percentage of funding. So if someone gives 75% of the funding, 75% of the services or the time for those services are going to be dedicated to that cooperator. Not necessarily important today, but I just thought you should be aware of this. But if you look through the report that Jason has talked about, And if you would, please bring it back up to the first page of the document on the screen. I want to go through each page just briefly, right there. Jason has very well, that first one, description of damage, has very well outlined the description of damage. He's talked about the site visit and so forth. And then scrolling down, he talked about the food sources and so forth, where it says scroll down, yeah, there you go. That paragraph that starts with the food sources, or do. He talks about the food sources and so forth. And then on at the bottom of that page, the last two paragraphs, to me, after surveying the area and observing the issues, talking to a number of people, they came to several conclusions about the issue. Then on the second page, a couple of things I think are important is from what he's observed in Finney County, they're poised to grow because of the habitat, because of the roosting, because of access to food and water. And then he talks about the holistic approach, which is option one. So on the next page, the paragraph I wanted to highlight is, the case in Finney County will not be an easy one to solve. However, we think there are a lot of good opportunities to make a meaningful and positive impact within your county. And those opportunities would be best pursued in what he calls option one. So then you go to the last page of the document. He put together an idea of what a financial plan in his terminology. So if we could go to the next page, please, that has the chart on it. And he's estimated, even though the numbers say from May 1st to April 30th of next year, Jason put together the cost of what it would be to bring someone in. And I've been saying somewhere in the neighborhood of $90,000 to $100,000. His number is a little less than $90,000, but as we all know, there could be some things that change that. But my question to you today, and the reason I brought it up as a business item, is I had made a comment about this, had handed out the document in commissioner reports a couple of meetings ago, and I am interested in whether or not there's any interest in this board of pursuing some way to mitigate the bird issue that we have. And as I've said, one of the things that we're seeing in Garden City are restaurants and hotels and businesses being affected, and city utilities tell us that they're being affected, that it could in fact cause some power outages if it gets worse than it is today. And whether or not there's interest in moving forward to this, because as I go to the city tomorrow, I'm going to basically say the same things I've said to you, but I'm doing it in their public comment time to see if they want to bring it up as a business item in the future. And I want to be able to report to them that there is some interest on the county's part, or there isn't interest on the county's part to help address this issue. So that's all I'm asking for today is consideration, not to adopt a particular plan or anything like that at this time. And I hope that you've kept copies of the report, or you can access them through our packet today and pull the report out of the packet if you need to sit and review it. But lastly, I would say to you that we have a public health mandate, and that this is, in fact, a public health issue with some of our businesses, because what they witnessed during their field trip out here in February was some of the restaurants where the birds were making it dirty and so forth as you go in and out of an eating establishment, creating a health concern. So I think we have some obligation to at least consider something of this nature out of the health mandate, public health mandate that we are guided by through the state. So with that, I'm going to conclude my comments, and I'm going to open it up to discussion by the commissioners. Larry?
My comments are that I think it's a good idea. I would really be in favor of it if we get more cooperators involved and minimize our costs, and also that the employee is definitely a USDA employee and not a county employee, or I don't know about the city, but it would, I think that way we'd kind of be able to control what costs we agree to. I know it's a problem. You could probably, Bob Temple, I imagine, would sure have the same comments with the trouble they have with pigeons and everything out there at their establishments. I know the feed yard operators around the Great Bend area, you know, they have to deal with the migratory birds that come in and out of Cheyenne Bottoms, and they've battled this bird problem for years. It's a real problem.
They have worked with Barton County Feeders to piggyback off of the last thing you said. And yes, there is interest from the business people, both in agriculture as well as those that are more tied to Convention Visitor Bureau, if you will, for visitors and people coming into the community. But there is business interest. And then lastly, yes, Jason was very clear that this would be a USDA employee, and the funding would come from whatever sources we would be able to round up, if you will. Bob?
Yeah, I think the piece you mentioned on pigeons would greatly increase the attention span of a lot of business people, because I think they're a year-round problem. I guess in the back of my mind, I look at the USDA person or the person from out of town, quote unquote, that if there's a way that we could use that year that we would have of this individual to train someone here, so that we wouldn't have the added expense of having some out-of-town expert on continuing years, it might be advisable. And then I guess the last thing I would do is say, in my opinion, that we shouldn't commit more than a third of the cost, knowing that the city is out there, and that if these private businesses are truly affected, that there could be a way that they could be the other third of this funding.
We can certainly explore the funding options and so forth going forward if there's interest in moving forward with it. I appreciate what you're saying about the year-round issue. And then lastly, the one thing that Jason has said to me several times, and I've had emails and phone conversations with him as well as meeting him here in February, is do not kid ourselves, for lack of a better word, that a one-time thing will fix the issue, because he said it needs to be ongoing, it's going to be long-term. Now, that doesn't mean that we couldn't do what you suggested and have USDA train somebody locally. That doesn't mean that. But he says, even though he's put together a one-year budget, do not think that 1 year is going to address the issue to the point of maintenance that we would want it to be. Dave?
Your, Mr. Chairman, your discussions you've had would center around what land mass? What?
This is Finney County.
The entire county? But not the city, or including?
No, it includes the city, but it's Finney County, including the city of Holcomb and Garden City and other areas.
This topic came up at a coffee shop, and a pretty interesting discussion, because a handful of farmers and grain producers and whatnot involved in the coffee klatch. But one of the people who happens to live near Wind River Grain said, and he wasn't picking on Wind River Grain, but he said when they had a great big pile of uncovered seed out there, grain, that would just be black at times with blackbirds. And then those blackbirds take off and go somewhere east. And I said, I think they went out to Towns Riverview South.
Yeah, they're out there. They're out to our place.
But anyway, I set out on my swinging backyard, let's watch wildlife go by, and the blackbirds will be going, and it's just a line of them, and I don't know where they're heading in the evening hours, but east, northeast, just the sky's almost black at times with those, so, I don't know how you capture them, whether you run them off, what you do, but I'm in support of examining this a bit more, so.
Okay. Dwayne?
Well, my coffee shop geniuses looked at me and says, "You got to be kidding." The way I understand wildlife laws, and council can please correct me, but starlings and so forth are migratory birds, and lethal means of controlling migratory birds are not allowed.
They are allowed,
Well,
because they've used them.
again, my
in other
coffee shop
places.
wizards have a dozen chemicals that businessmen and people can use that will solve this problem then.
Well, I think there's a, yeah, okay.
So, I am all for the concept. I am, if I vote with my constituents, they don't want to use county funds to do it.
And I'm not gonna justify or argue the point or anything, but the two feedlots that I talked to who had experience back in '05 to '10, said that there were ways that they were controlling them, but as soon as the funding disappeared, it was not long after that that the bird population started increasing again. So they felt like the work that was done in the early 2000s was worthwhile, early to mid-2000s. There are different ways, and that's what would have to be discussed with a person like this representative that he's budgeted for here. The other thing that I can see is if we're interested in at least continuing the conversation about this subject, based on what feedback I might get tomorrow, well, I won't get feedback in public comment, but what feedback I might get from the city, then maybe we convene a small task force to figure out funding and what's the way that we do this. But there was success before, but the USDA funding went away, and then we took a back step. So today is, I'm hearing consensus with some reservations. I respect that. But I'm hearing consensus that it is an issue that maybe we need to continue trying to address. Am I reading you correctly? I mean, with unknown answers yet to some of the questions, I get that. But I guess another way to ask it, do you think I'm wasting my time in trying to address this issue with the appropriate players?
I think it'd be interesting to see the reception you get tomorrow at the city. If they are strongly in favor of joining that venture, then I think that allows you to take the next step.
Okay. And the other group that I hope, and Dwayne, I think I've got you as liaison of the CVB, but I'm going to ask Roxanne for permission to come into that group because some of those businesses are most affected as well, restaurants and hotels and stuff. So we'll try to visit with them as well. Okay, thank you for allowing me that time to have that discussion. We will continue some work on it, and yes, I will give you feedback with regard to reception tomorrow. The next thing is board governance on the second page of our agenda. And based on a couple of different reasons, Bob brought to my attention that it's probably time to revisit our goals and so forth. And so you should have in your packet the goals that are on the website, and they are on our website under governance model with regard to the county commission. And they were done in 2019. And partly I'll take responsibility for not bringing them forward earlier this year. But in the last couple of years, I think they took a back seat to the health issues, the pandemic stuff that we had going on. And as I use the axiom, sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind, and we kind of had an oversight of reviewing those. But we were asked for Lana's retreat that they had for economic development the other day, what our goals are, and yes, we have goals. But Robert took the liberty to change wording in a few places, and I don't know if, how many of you have them printed there in front of you, but not on the first page. I'll come back to that later. But on the second page that talked about immediate and ongoing goals, if you have a pencil and paper or something, you might make a notation. Well, they were in the not the old ones.
The new ones are in there.
The new ones are on the screen, yeah. But the old ones are on the website, and the new ones are in the board packet that we received. And again, let me backstep just for a second. Again, I'm not asking for any final approval or things like that for this document, but I believe we need to keep it on our meeting agenda for the next couple of meetings. Because, and I'm jumping forward for a minute, one of the things that we state in here is that every quarter we'll have a review of these, and we've been remiss in not doing that, so to kind of get back on schedule. But if you look at the, under immediate and ongoing, under the first bullet point, Robert did add, and I don't disagree with this, that support improvements to 83 Highway. That was not on our document, in our document in 2019. So that was a sub-bullet point that was added, and we are supportive of those improvements on 83 Highway. We just hadn't stated that previously. There was the second big bullet point that was changed was we had in 19 stated, assure the county administrator, et cetera, et cetera. Robert had changed that to support the county administration. So those are things that we need to talk about, and what is the wording that we feel is most appropriate, because this is a board document. And then there was just a minor change in the economic development funding comment under the third big bullet point, but that was still left in there. And then, for example, under the fourth bullet point, under immediate, we have the wording facilitate possibility of consolidation of extension districts. Well, we've done that. You know, that's West Plains. So that one can be deleted going forward because we've accomplished that. There were some cleanup things that I had noted. And then under the intermediate, Robert made a couple of changes, and again, right or wrong, we need to decide whether these are things that we want to do or the wordings that we want. But in the fourth bullet point under intermediate, where we say analyze and address community and so forth, we had it written in continue efforts to enhance connectivity. Well, we've already got some of that connectivity going, and so Robert had just simply reworded that, collaborate in area of fostering better connected Finney County. So just different things to indicate that, you know, we're moving forward with some of these projects. And then there was a reference under that bullet point about task force for the county health. Develop a comprehensive plan for the health. Robert has worded it a task force for county health and EMS building. So there's several things that we need to go through, see what is immediate and ongoing, that you clear back up at the top of that second page about immediate and ongoing. The farmland road completion is near. We're close to the highway with that project, and funding has been identified for that. And so one of these days, that definitely can come off of our immediate ongoing because that project's going to be completed. My point of referencing those different things, based on what's on the website and what you see and what was in our packet today, and I might have let me qualify one thing. I might have said backwards some of the things, the wording changes, and I apologize for that because I'm looking at both documents here, and I apologize. But those were where the changes were made at this point. But the 19 one is on the website. The revised 22 doesn't mean it was revised by us as a board. That is up to us as a board to revise it, but Robert used that just to note that there are differences between, in 4 or 5 places, between what's on the website and what you have in your packet today. Lastly, and then I'm going to open it up to some discussion, I did not oppose this when we did our mission statement, but subsequent to us doing our mission statement, it was brought to my attention that people who reside in Finney County are not citizens of Finney County. They're residents of Finney County. They're citizens of the United States. So I've started referencing residents rather than citizens, and throughout the first page of our document, we use the reference to citizens many times, but they're not citizens of Finney County. And so being someone that tries to be as correct as possible with words, you know, sometime, not today, but sometime that's even one of the points I want to reference and see whether or not we need to change our terminology slightly with some of those things. So what I wanted to accomplish today, though, and I appreciate Bob holding me to task on this, we need to bring back our goals and objectives, and do we still want it in this format? Are these the appropriate goals and objectives? Do we want to change them? Do we want to completely rewrite it? Whatever. And do we want to do that a little bit at a time during our board meetings under board governance, because we have board governance on the agenda every meeting? Or do we want to have a work session where our sole subject is goals and objectives that we update and revise and decide what it is that's most important to this commission? And there's really only one change in commissioners at this point, but starting in January of next year, there could be 2 or 3 different commissioners on this. So how much work do we want to do now versus, and have a stage set for possibly new commissioners versus waiting and letting a different commission take a look at this in January? And we still use this as our guide going forward. And lastly, I will say there's reference to convening and so forth, and that's the spirit in which I've been trying to do convention conference space. I've been trying to do the Blackbird issue, is convening the particular stakeholders and trying to bring them together to have discussions. So I just wanted to bring it up today. No motions or no, I'm not asking for any official action, but again, kind of like with the Blackbird thing, what's the consensus of this board as far as moving forward and the process we might take to update, revise, rewrite our goals and objectives? Dave?
Well, my thinking is that rather than doing a little bit each meeting, I'd rather, in order to maintain continuity, let's have a meeting and, if it's important, and discuss it. Have a day set aside or an afternoon or a morning or whatever, and give it some clear thinking.
Fair enough. Dwayne?
I guess I would tend to echo Dave's comment that we all need to probably be involved with this.
Okay. Have a dedicated time to review it and discuss it. Larry?
You skipping?
No, I do.
I'm the rookie.
No, I do.
See?
No, I try to mix this up. Sometimes I start with Dwayne, then sometimes with Dave, and so.
Well, I have to agree. I think if we're going to change the goals and objectives, we need to do this at the first of every year, really, if you're going to do that, and then ongoing, and doing a little bit at each meeting, it just drags out the meetings.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Bob?
Yeah, I'm definitely opposed to waiting until next year. We've waited 3 years now, so we can't go any farther. Secondly, I don't know how Robert and his staff can create a budget if they don't know what the goals and direction that we have for intermediate and long-term goals. I think actually there's some really positive things in these goals. And with cleaning them up and paying attention to them and then revisiting them on a regular basis, we can do some good, but we can't keep ignoring them.
Yeah, and maybe ignore is the right word. I would say oversight. You know, there was an oversight in keeping them in front of us over the last 2 or 3 years and not pointing fingers at anybody or any one person. But now is better than never of starting to get back on track. So I appreciate what you just said. So, well, let me work with Robert, and we'll come up with some ideas as far as when we might pull something together and what that format might look like as far as an agenda, and then we'll have a whatever the length of time workshop, so to speak, very, very quickly, very soon. So, and we'll either this month or early June, we'll try to get that accomplished. So, okay? All right, thank you. And, and then lastly, you all have my cell number. Text me. You all have my email address. Write me with things that you see in the document today that absolutely don't belong there or absolutely are missing, so that we can incorporate those into our agenda for that session. So please communicate with me as soon as you can. Okay. Now we're on to reports, and we'll start with staff and then go into commissioner reports. So Robert?
All right, over the last couple of weeks, we worked extensively on the county budget and reviewing of the position descriptions. As you know, the position descriptions as a first step in moving forward on wage adjustments that we'll incorporate into the budget for '23 as well. Week of the 18th, towards the end of the week, provided a draft to Linda on the developers agreement for Western Corridor. That was pushed out by Linda early last week. We did do our ARPA reporting last week. It was due on Saturday, but I think we had a few hours to spare. So, and then the upcoming weeks, once again, the main focus appears to be budgeting process. We are going through outside agencies and getting their requests and understandings of things that they have planned for the upcoming year, and meeting with the department, as you're aware, many of them not having prepared a budget because of the newness here. So, any questions?
Questions to Robert? Anybody? Bob?
Yeah, on the ARPA deal, did you elect to do the one exclusion that would allow us to do whatever we wanted with, if you will,
Correct.
the monies involved?
Yeah, correct.
So that it makes it a little simpler
Yeah.
when you do decide? And then secondly, on the budget deals, I know I attended Compass Board meeting, and I think it would be at least nice for those of us who do sit on various boards, when you have those meetings with those particular entities, if we could be at least alerted to the fact that this is going to happen, so we would have an idea of what goes on in those meetings.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments to Robert?
Well, just, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
clarification. You commented about the western, I can't
Kansas
think of it.
Corridor.
Western Corridor.
Corridor. Mr. Hannigan, Dr. Hannigan's concern, is it addressed and we're moving forward, or?
I think there's a couple of updates that I believe your county counselor can provide to you on that.
Okay, well, I don't want to jump the gun, but it surprised me that we weren't doing anything when we did something, so, anyway.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. I'll wait for Lon to call.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with regard to Western Corridor, we did, first off, push out that development agreement. I spoke to the council for the Western Corridor, just about what changes they wanted. So those should be getting pushed out again here early this week, hopefully, with those changes that we discussed. With regard to Northwest Industrial District, we do have a meeting. Commissioner Finney asked to set up a meeting with EC with regard to the question. I think that question was provided in the packet from Dr. Hannigan. So Commissioner Finney, I texted him late Friday afternoon, that we got that contact with EC Brookover with regard to that. Additionally, and I've already brought up to all of you that that's on my radar, the zoning regulations need to be updated. Typically, in reviewing other counties who have updated their zoning regulations in the last several years, they're by and large using consulting firms to do that. So I've started just compiling a list of consulting firms that have been used by other counties. I spoke briefly with the city's counselor here this morning, just because I had the opportunity and saw her. It may be a conversation that all of the entities in Finney County, the city, Holcomb, Finney County, we all probably need to look at our zoning regulations. And since they play off of each other a little bit, that might be a conversation to have with all of those entities. But just putting that on your radar for now, right now, that could be a significant cost, those consulting firms. So just bear that in mind. Additionally, probably in the month of June, I'll be presenting you also with a policy for sale of surplus property. Most counties have a policy in place for that for whatever reason. Finney County is not on those list of counties that have that, but I think it'll help in the future just with, selling properties, just minor things that aren't real costly, that we could just come up with a procedure rather than having to present you with an individual resolution each time, and just streamline that process a little bit. And then, of course, we have another internal staff review with the planning office this week. That's with regard to, it sounded like a development on Old Highway 83 that's coming up. Last week, we did an ISR with regard to a potential water station for purchase in the county. So I'll continue going to those meetings. They're very helpful, and I think help us to have that direct contact with the planning office for future issues.
Questions or comments to our counselor? Appreciate the work you're doing and those high dollars that we pay you to do that. So. If you want to pull up on the computer screen the upcoming meetings and events, again, I appreciate the fact that we've got community events and so forth, as well as our commission meetings and that kind of thing. One of the events that came to my attention, and it's I'm bringing it to you as a question and as an event when we have this schedule up here. I received an email last week about a fire demonstration. Did each of you get the email for that from Anthony Cruz? Okay, so I'm just leaving it up to each of you if you want to attend that luncheon that he's invited us to respond on your own, direct to Anthony and let him know whether or not you will be there. Now, with regard to commissioner reports, and this time I'm going to start with Bob because I was chastised for. He thought he was being left. I mean, Larry thought he was being left out, but he wasn't being left out.
I think the ladies that addressed us this morning from Grandview out at Southwind, I believe the sewer district number 2 will accommodate them. However, it is a significant distance south from where their residence is, which involves a new force main, and there have been extensions of those force mains that have been done before, but it's all through application and everything else. But to say that it's not available is not fair. It is available, but there is a cost. So, at our meeting with Compass last Thursday, I know you'll find it hard to believe, but they're finding that their pay scale is not commensurate with communities around, and they're having a very hard time. And they took some relatively drastic action to get their therapists additional money and try to get it stabilized. They're $25,000 below what the school district pays. And so it makes kind of a difficult deal with that being a 9 or 10-month contract versus the other, and this one being 24 hours a day exposure. I'd like to, when we do discuss the concept of upgrading our goals and pathways, that we also look at our governance model, that we consider where we are with it as it is published on the website and what we're actually doing versus what we say we're going to do. I think it's time to revisit that also. And those are all the other items that I had. Thank you.
And Bob, I think Robert had a question or a clarification or something with regard to the sewer district or sewer question.
Yes, Sewer District 2, as you recall, when we talked about doing some upgrades to that, the engineers were studying the expansion of that to utilize some of the ARPA funds to maybe encourage connectivity there and reduce the cost to homeowners.
That'd be very good.
Larry?
The only thing I would report on was a KLPG conference call I participated in, and it was quite interesting that lots of the fellow commissioners were complaining about that the ARPA funds that the state put out didn't come to western Kansas, or the
Base grant.
Base grant.
Base grant.
Let me clarify exactly what I was saying. Yeah, base grant funds, which we had applied for our west side sewer and were declined. And there were several other commissioners from other counties that they had put in applications for different projects, and the, is it Department of Commerce? Is that who? Yes. Okay.
Exactly.
Their request from them was that, oh yeah, we spent all that money in western Kansas on one project. And then two counties got a minuscule amount. So we're not the only ones complaining. So I think Topeka, I don't know if it'll make any difference, but Topeka is hurt.
Dave?
No kidding. We're out of order, but I'll do it.
No, we're just going random order. I don't even care what the order says on our agenda. But.
Well, I want to report on a library board meeting that was kind of a big send-off. We had a stack of Oreo cookies, like a Christmas tree, and 2 tables covered with Oreo cookies because Claudia Ward, after all these years of serving the library board, is leaving the library board, and Claudia is the Oreo cookie lady. So we had a good send-off, and also I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that our chairperson is stepping down at the end of the first term, Christine Leitner, and she's done an outstanding job. So with action we took this morning, we get the board back up to staff level. Also, Lana had an event out in the middle of a sandstorm called Hunter's Glen. Let's throw a spade of dirt in the air, and attended that. Went home and put the clothes in the laundry bag and got in the shower. That was a wind-blown event. As mentioned, the chamber banquet, attended that. It was interesting. And then I had a session with the Real Men, Real Leaders group, and you talk about a bunch of enthusiastic kids. So we met and discussed the difference between county government, and they'd already had a presentation on city government from the mayor and on state government from Representative Bill Clifford. So I could kind of fill in the difference. and then had an opportunity to go to Wendy's, where the kids promptly after our meeting and instruction went over to Wendy's to help serve and sell cookies and whatnot. But that's a bunch of enthusiastic young folks, about 20 of them, and full of questions, full of enthusiasm. The only other thing that's been previously mentioned, LEPC was, the meeting, every 2-month meeting, was scheduled for tomorrow, but due to conflicts, it will be rescheduled for May 10, if anybody's interested, at 1:30 in the afternoon. And that, I believe, is it. So thank you.
Okay. Dwayne?
Well, I was called out of town on family deal, so I missed the Hunters Glen, my Convention and Visitor Bureau meeting, and Great Plains. So about the only thing I got accomplished was the chamber banquet.
And the speaker at the banquet was outstanding. He was very good, and most of the time when my wife attends those things with me, she's, the speaker's okay. I overheard her telling our kids on the telephone, oh my gosh, I wish you could have heard that speaker. She was very excited about the message that he brought to us, and so I compliment the...
Fair painter, too. He's a fair painter.
Yeah, very good painter, yeah. But, so the chamber banquet, I felt had a great message this year and so forth. A couple of things, the KCCA conference, Kansas County Commissioners Association, I attended last week in Salina. At that conference, Larry, the base grant subject was brought up several times because there were a lot of Western Kansas folks at that conference, and there was one comment made about some favoritism maybe being played with that due to political reasons, and I won't name any names, but secondly, but that conference was very good. However, there were only like 92 registrants. I don't know how many counties that represented, because some of the counties had all 3 of their commissioners there. Some didn't have any there. I was one from ours. But it was interesting conversation, and I get as much out of the networking as I do anything else. Lastly, I would say on those conferences, they move those around the state every spring. Last year was in Liberal, this year was Salina. They're looking for a place for next year. We are more than welcome to bid on hosting those things directly by contacting Kim at KAC. But I know Riley County is putting in a bid, and I suggested that we or Ellis County could host that kind of a conference. So hopefully sometime we'll have them in Garden City as well. Another subject, if you pay attention to the City Commission agenda, the pre-meeting tomorrow at 11 o'clock is with regard to code enforcement. And I'm going to try to attend, but I think it would be good for at least one of our county folks to be there because they're taking up the subject that our attendee at our meeting brought forth to them, and so they're going to spend about an hour tomorrow. But we need to be in on that conversation because it affects not just the city, it affects Finney County as well. And then I do have a meeting this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Our I think we meet quarterly, yeah. But on the sales tax committee that's put together for the sales tax that are being used for the shooting range and gun range and so forth and so on. So we have our regularly scheduled meeting this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And then yes, as Linda's already said, we're meeting with E.C. Brookover, and I don't know if that's Zoom or conference call, but at 1 o'clock today, Robert and Linda and I will be meeting with him. And I think that's it from my report. Anything else that anyone's forgotten or wants to add? Yes, Bob.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment, we had a retreat with Finney County Economic Development that Robert and I were able to attend, and I think they've reworked all of their goals and set out some very, very aggressive goals of where they're headed and how they hope to get there, and I think it's going to be a challenge, but I think with that challenge comes some activity, so we're looking forward to where they're headed.
Yeah, I unfortunately was unable to be there because I was in Salina. Last thing I would say, if you're ever in Salina, or they had our reception the night before the conference started, was at the Garage, downtown Salina, which I can't remember the owner's name now, but he has millions of dollars of restored cars in there. Some of them are traveling exhibits, some of them are permanent exhibits. But what an addition that is, positive addition to downtown Salina. So if you ever have a chance and you're in Salina, in addition to the Cozy Inn Burgers, which is just a couple blocks from the Garage, you might want to take a look at that as you're driving through. Anything else? If not, I'm asking that we adjourn into executive session. We are not anticipating any action after the session. I believe that 15 minutes, well, let's go 20 minutes, just to make sure that we don't have to reconvene. So let's say for 20 minutes, and this is under attorney-client privilege, and it would involve the commissioners, Linda and Robert. And then we will reconvene, well, the big screen back there says it's 11:20, so we'll reconvene no later than 11:35.
Well, that's not 20 minutes.
Oh, no, what, no, I was.
11:40.
Yeah. Yeah, I misspoke.
I'll offer the
Second.
motion.
40, 11:40, yeah.
Made the motion.
You made the motion?
No, you made the motion. Sounded good.
Oh, I did? Okay. There is a motion, 20-minute executive session. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, my math skills were off today, so. session. If not, we are adjourned until May, what is it, 18th? 16th, yeah, 16th.
Sorry, that meeting will be a longer meeting that day. Just a reminder that we have the outside agencies all presenting their budget requests that day, so.
So block out quite a bit of that day.
Yeah, and I think we will provide lunch.
Y'all know that May and June are my busiest months, don't you?
Well, yeah, but you signed on to this job, so
Don't mean I can't walk out.
that's true.